Five things that we did, that we looked at, that we took into consideration when buying our farm. And I want to share with you the 5 things that we looked at when considering the purchase of our land. I've had a couple of people ask me about this, about what did you guys look at? How did you settle up on your piece of land and so forth? So I want to share with you 5 things that we looked at. Now, by no stretch of the imagination am I a real estate expert, but these are the 5 things that we looked at when we were considering which piece of land to purchase. So let's jump right into this. Number 1, know your location. Know the market. Now there's a couple of ways of doing this and some things that you can do on your own, but I think the most important is find a good realtor. A local realtor, preferably that knows the area, knows where all the nuclear waste is buried and kind of steer you, away from that area. The realtors that know some of the local ordinances and laws. Some neighborhoods won't allow you to have, for example, chickens or a rooster or whatnot. And so if you're really big into wanting a rooster, you may have to steer clear of some neighborhoods with smaller parcels of land. The more rural you get, the more challenges you have with electricity and water, for example. And so knowing your area is massively huge. So first and foremost, get a great realtor. The other thing that you can do is you can look online, town databases, for example. Go to the larger metropolitan cities or the county seat or whatnot, and most of them have databases that you can look at and see things that are going on with the land. And then lastly, just from a personal perspective, Zillow is great. You can kind of get a lot of information looking at Zillow. That's number 1, know your market. Number 2, what's your budget? I mean, let's be honest, it is so cool to be able to go out and look for a 500-acre farm and to be dreaming about all the things that you can do with that 500 acres. But if your budget is $100,000, I'm not sure where you're going to find that. So know your budget right out of the gate and stay within your budget. And your budget goes far, perhaps extends beyond just the purchase price of the land. I mean, you've got to look at other things that are involved. For us, when we were looking at our land, one of the things that we missed, and it's going to cost us, is the fact that the electricity to that property had been cut years ago. And so there were no poles, there were no lines, there was nothing coming up to our land. And so we're going to have to pay for that. The other part about your budget is stick to it. Don't let it leak. Because I'll tell you this, what we're finding is that as you get into creating or building the infrastructure on your farm, you're going to want to do some things. And so you're going to have plenty and ample opportunity to spend more money. So stick to the budget of what you're going to, what you kind of settle up on in terms of the amount or the budget amount, the dollar amount or the acreage amount that you're going to be looking at. That's number 2. Number 3, water and landscape features. That's right, water and landscape features. So one of the things that we looked at when we were looking at a farm, and we thought that we really had to have it, was some water. Not just the county water. We wanted to have either a pond, a spring, maybe even a well, some other water resource that we weren't going to necessarily have to pay for. So we could do maybe some drip irrigation, or we could maybe water, or kind of facilitate the watering of livestock or whatever with one of these freer water sources. And so looking for a parcel that had water already on it. That was one of the things that we really wanted. And we looked at several pieces of property, and lo and behold, this one we kind of just, I think God smiled greatly on us because it had all three. It had the pond, it had the spring, a natural spring runs year round, and it had a well. Now the well is not an overabundant well. It's actually less than a gallon, I think a gallon and a half per minute. So it's not enough to satisfy the needs of our family, for example, but it's a great supplementary resource to county water, for example, so, to water our animals or do a little bit of irrigation or whatever the case might be, if planned properly, right? So water was one of the biggies that we looked at when looking for our land. The other one was we didn't want a solid treed lot. We had to have some mixture. We also didn't want all pastured, so all cleared land. We really kind of wanted a little of each. And so in looking for our land, we wanted to make sure that we were looking in areas that had a little of both. What we found was the land that we ended up purchasing was actually a slice of 128 acres. So a person had 128 acres up for sale. We came in and carved out 55 of it, 56 and a half to be exact. And we purchased the 56-acre tract. Well, when we went in and we started looking at how to slice and dice it, part of it was solid woods. And we knew we didn't want all of that. And so we were able to work out through negotiation a cut, if you will, of that property where it had a little bit of woods and a little bit of pasture, cleared out land. But some of you may be looking for just exclusive privacy where you can get lost in some woods somewhere and not be seen and found. Maybe a tree lot is what you're looking for. But that was really huge. The other things that we were looking at was the role of the terrain, which way the sun set and rose and set. Did we have some south side or some south facing slopes for maximum sun? There were several other things that we took into consideration when we were looking at the land. For example, we also looked at soil. We did soil samples. We took soil samples to see what the pH levels were, for example. We looked at when it rained real hard. Well, were there marshes that were created on the land? Did it all drain real well? All these things that we really needed to take into consideration, and I would certainly encourage you, if you're looking at land, to take into consideration is to go out to the land when it's beautiful and sunny, and when it's really, really rainy, go out in the morning and go out in the evening. Watch what happens to this land. Watch what happens when it rains. Really critical things that go on that are not going to happen at just one snapshot in time. You can go out and fall in love with a piece of property one minute, go back at a different time or a different day or different weather, conditions and whatnot, and be completely disappointed and check out. So, make sure you do your homework on what you're looking for in terms of terrain and things of that nature. That is number 3. Number 4. So number 4 is for dreamers, right? This is number 4 is potential. Can you see your future farm on the land? When Karen and I went out and looked at this land, I started picturing where we would put our cabin. We started thinking immediately about where would we put a barn? Could we see the orchard out in the east-facing field? The far east field, could we see our apple and pear and plum trees growing out there? In the very far corner of our property is another field that just so happened to be high in acidity. And man, I was just dreaming about having this massive blueberry field. And with high acid soil, blueberry plants will thrive. So we started dreaming. We were dreaming about where we would put all of these things, whether it was our animals for grazing, or whether it was the garden, or whether it was the cabin or the barns, what kind of potential does this land have? And if you get out to a piece of land that you kind of really like, but you really are having a hard time picturing where things are going to go, draw it out. That's what we did. In fact, I went back, got on Google Maps, took the outline of the property, blew it up on a piece of paper, and man, we just started drawing. We started dreaming about where things were going to be. And then we had to make sure that it was feasible. Again, does the land drain well? Or are you going to put your cabin right in the middle of a marsh when it rains? What kind of potential does your land have? And dream big. Always dream big. Go hard or go home. Number 5, the last one, is do your homework. I've said this a couple of times before, but it is absolutely true. Do your homework. Number 1, hire professionals to do a lot of the tough stuff. Perk tests, for example. You don't want to do a perk test yourself. Hire a professional to do it. And in many places, it's required by law that you have someone who is certified do your perk test. So hire professionals. The second thing is always do a title search. Before you get too far down the road, look and see if there's any liens against it. Look and see if there's any issues with the land. If someone else owns mineral rights to the land. I mean, there's all kinds of different things you can look at, but make sure you do a title search. The third thing is you can also look at recent land surveys that have been done. We took a look at, and actually even ordered our own survey, but we looked at all kinds of information, again, on city databases for the county. And then lastly, I would tell you to meet your neighbors, right? In doing homework, one of the things that you don't want to do is to move into a neighborhood or into a community where you got nasty neighbors. Man, I got more things to do in my life than to worry about nasty neighbors. But they can make your life a living you know what. So meet your neighbors. When we first got there, the neighbors actually came over to meet us, and we were just looking at the land, and before we even purchased it. And when we did purchase the land, they came over several more times. We met many of their family members, and turns out it's a multi-generational family that lives all around us, and they're terrific. They are the ideal, like the quintessential farmer. Just will help you in any way they can, and did. In fact, when Karen had a flat tire on the tractor, and I was in town getting lumber, and so she was there stuck with the tractor with a flat tire. Well, guess what? The neighbor comes over, helps her, showed her how to use the bucket to raise the tractor up, to lift the front tires off the ground. And he got in there and lugged off the tire. And when I returned, it was there waiting for me just to run it up to the tire shop to get a plug for it. It was awesome. And all done by great neighbors. But it's a huge thing. It's a very huge thing. Some communities are closed off, and they don't welcome new folks in very easily. So hey, look, that's what we did when researching and buying land. There's a ton of other things out there that you need to do, I'm sure. But these are ones that were important to us, and I encourage you. All of our situations are different. We're all coming from different places, different experiences, and different contexts. But I encourage you to take into consideration the certainly knowing that area, your budget, doing your research, doing your homework, meeting your neighbors. If you do these things, I think that you'll be happy. Your confidence will just burst with your decision on what parcel of land that you're going to buy. For us, no brainer. It was a dream come true. True godsend. Very, very blessed. And I hope you are with whatever selection that you make. Hey, thank you for tuning in and watching this video, and thanks for following along with the Little Orchard Farm. If this is something that you like, you enjoy, hey, make sure you pound that subscribe button, ring the bell so you'll know when when the next video is gonna be coming out. And we will see you on the other side. Have a wonderful week. We'll see you later. Take care.